Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Magical Learning Podcast for this week. This is a podcast where we like to bring a bit of magical thinking to a bit of learning. We're going to be doing typically stuff around business and, becoming a better leader. But today we're doing something a little different. We've got 3 generations on one podcast today. So we thought we might try and have a bit of fun and look at some interesting topics. But before we get to that, let's see how everyone's going. So, Gran, aka Aileen Fenton, and Danette, how are you both going this week? What's been going on?
You go first,
Yeah.
Gran.
Yeah, well, we've had a hectic week because Pa has been really ill with
My
heart
grandpa.
problems. Yeah, and he's now in the Royal Melbourne Private Hospital, having been in the Albury Hospital before and being transferred down here for specialist care. So he's had 2 operations, the last one yesterday, which took 4 hours, and he's out of bed now and in a low dependency ward, and he's done 2 laps around the unit, so having a nap. So he's doing well. So the outcome's been really good, but it's been quite worrying.
Yeah.
Well, hand over to Danette. She can tell you how she is.
So another week, another keeping out of mischief, and we're all very grateful to the people at Albury Hospital, Royal Melbourne Hospital, and Melbourne Private Hospital as well. So the staff, team members, etc., have been phenomenal. So. And Pa at 88's doing amazing given his age and what he's gone through in the last couple of weeks. So it's great that he's come out the other side, and hopefully we'll all head home tomorrow.
Well, that's great news, and it's and look, as it's been sad. Well, this has been happening. I mean, not sad, I guess. It's just been kind of worrying, but it's good to see that he's back now. But it has brought together the opportunity for us all to see each other and to be on the podcast together today. So that is positive. And we're going to be talking about how things have changed, because one thing we were talking about while we were sort of hanging out with Pa is how podcasting right now, this is a sort of theory that I'm working on, is going through a similar transition period to what radio did when TV came in. So because it's all the sort of technologies moving towards video, and if you do want to watch the video of this podcast, head over to Spotify or YouTube right now. But all the technology is heading towards video, and YouTube is for the first time ever recorded that more people watched it on TVs than phones recently, which means that more people are sitting down with dinner and watching YouTube. So
Right.
YouTube and video podcasting are all starting to feel this new format of how people are living and watching. And so that is not unlike when radio moved over to TV. So it's interesting to kind of see what those things are. And we'll talk to Gran a little bit more about that. But before we get into that, I thought, since we're talking about, how things have changed, I actually have some things, Danette, from your past, which is exciting. So I don't know if this means anything to you. For the people in the video, this is an Electric Light Orchestra album,
Awesome, yes.
which I
Melbourne.
pinched from the farm. So that's one thing that's changed. Do you remember that one much at all, Danette?
Yeah, I loved the ELO, the Electric Light Orchestra, way back in the day when I was a teenager, and so that was one of a couple of albums that I had. And isn't it funny that the records have come full circle? So we started with tapes and records, and then went to CDs and stuff, and now we're back to records again. So that's pretty cool.
And another one that I've found is
Oh my goodness, Greece.
The Grease album.
Grease on vinyl. So got some good ones here. Times have changed, but it's good to see, like a record, they come back round. So anyway, before we get into, I guess, today's conversation, did anyone want to start with how things have changed? Maybe I'll start with you, Gran. Actually, let's start where we just picked off. So we're just talking about radio to TV. Do you have any memories from that time? Because I feel like all that knowledge is going to be relevant again.
Yeah. Well, I do. Well, we only had radio at the farm, and at 1:00 every afternoon it was Blue Hills by Gwen Meredith. So we all had to stop what we were doing and listen to that for half an hour.
And what was that, Gran?
That went on for years and years.
What was that, Gran?
What was it? Blue Hills by Gwen.
Yeah.
It was a family story about, fights in families and the usual stuff. A bit like Days of Our Lives, if you ever watched that.
Okay.
So, anyway, so I didn't see any TV till I went nursing in 1960. and we didn't have a TV at the nurses' home, so we used to ride our bikes down the street and sit in front of a shop window and watch whatever was on. So there wasn't much. There were quiz shows, uh, Bob and Dolly Dyer, I think they spun a wheel and they won something, and then they could take that or pick a box, and all the audience would say, pick a box," and sometimes they picked a box and there was a tissue or a hanky in it. Sometimes there were good prizes, a holiday. And, yeah, and then there were quiz shows, and Barry Jones, I don't know whether you've ever heard of him.
Yep.
But he was a very smart man, and he used to answer all the questions and give you a great spiel about everything and how it happened. So he won every quiz show, so they banned him in the finish. And then he entered politics, so he probably died of boredom. And we had a lot of British comedy, like Steptoe and Son and Till Death Do Us Part, and yeah, they were really good comedy shows. And I actually saw Alf Garnett after he came out to Australia, and he was the best comedian I've ever seen. From a full hour, he told jokes. So there was mainly Australian content. I think the only American was I Love Lucy, was
Yeah.
Lucille Bacall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that was probably about the only American show. So it was a lot of Australian content and a lot of British comedy. So yeah, but it was
Mm.
little tiny black and white TV and a great big cabinet.
That's it. The TVs had to be very heavy back then. That was an important
Yes,
feature.
you couldn't flog them. No.
Yeah.
And finally, I think a couple of years later, they did get a TV for us at the nurses' home, so we didn't have to ride our bikes down in the dark, without lights, of course. So does that give you some idea of the change?
It does. It does. It's very interesting, and it's interesting to see how that maps onto today, because one of the most popular types of TikToks is actually quizzes. So that kind of reminds me of that a little bit. And when you also think about sort of celebrity gossip, which is also another popular topic, that's kind of similar to that Days of Our Lives element, just with more real world people, you know?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I was going to go, Danette, did you have any memories when you were growing up of what TV was like sort of back then? Because I know you had some stops where you were living where you didn't even have a TV.
Yes. Yes. So
Yeah.
I remember at the farm before we went to Papua New Guinea. So we lived in Papua New Guinea when I was 7 to 9. But before that, I only remember one channel, and I remember Kimber the White Lion was a show, and I was terrified of Doctor Who's music. So the moment I heard that, I wasn't watching TV at all. Then we went to Papua New Guinea, no TV at all for 2 years because they didn't have any TV stations up there. But we did go to the police barracks every Saturday, I think it was, Saturday night, and watched movies there. So they were the old showreel ones, which, and I remember they used to play for the kids My Friend Flicker, which was one of the shows. Then we came back and colour TV had been invented. So that was pretty amazing, just seeing the colour. And I think they got then to the portable TV as well, which was, yeah. And then we saw things like beta videos and VHS and a whole stack of other changes after that. But it's interesting, as you said, Jez, things, we go to sound, we go back to video, and I think, different people prefer different things. So
And
some of the changes have helped people.
yeah, and you may not even believe this. This is going to probably shock both of you, but people are actually fascinated in those old TVs now. Like people are watching TikTok, they're connecting their phone and watching TikTok on the old TVs just because of the quality of the footage look, and the screen has a particular sort of flavor to it.
Yes.
So people like that, which is kind of fascinating.
We should have kept one, Greg.
Yeah, well, one thing that I wanted to touch on that I think has changed in a really interesting way, and hopefully maybe this will map onto some other things that you can think about. This is the one thing. Well, I mean, there's so many things I want to talk about: movies, TV shows. All of this is very interesting. Maybe I'll start with streaming and stuff like that, because we can work backwards from there. But it's fascinating. I don't know if everybody knows this, but the reason that movies for quite a while there became very heavily like Marvel films and a lot of just big blockbusters only was a result of actually people not buying DVDs, interestingly. So
Oh,
what used to happen is when a movie would get made, it didn't matter if it was good or not because it could make all this money on resale on DVDs because it makes, at the time that people were releasing DVDs, obviously people were burning DVDs and it was what, like $1 a disc. So
yep,
if you think about that, really like making a DVD and shipping it out, the whole process is probably costing $2
yeah,
and they're selling them for $24. So all of that was just profit. So basically what happened was the DVD industry supported bad movies getting made because they could eat the cost because they might make it back in DVDs. Some films only became successful once they went to DVD and what have you. And so once people started moving to streaming, that didn't happen as much. They weren't making as much money on each rewatch. And so basically all these film studios had to go, what is actually going to make us money? They had to strip it all down. And now I think that it's kind of rebalancing a little bit because other film studios are kind of filling in that gap.
yep.
But it's very interesting also what streaming services are buying now. I don't know if this is some other interesting gossip going from the DVDs then leads to the streaming era. And now the thing that streaming services are doing is one of two things. One is they're all investing in sport because that is content that you have to watch live. So it's going to bring eyeballs basically to the thing. So all of them have invested in sport now. But the other thing is that DVDs may be coming back because to circle this, to bring this whole thing back together, because this is a very small media story, but I think it has big implications. HBO has released its own streaming app, and it owns this thing called Cartoon Network. And some people that are about my age will probably know Cartoon Network. It had a bunch of weird cartoons on it. But basically, they decided that they didn't want to renew, HBO didn't want to renew Cartoon Network, and so they've just stopped carrying their stuff. And the reason they wanted to not continue it is that they had to keep paying residuals to the artists. So they went, even if we're getting people to watch this, we'd rather just not pay that. So we're just going to basically
Okay.
sacrifice that. And so what's interesting is if you're a Cartoon Network fan, now the best place to get that material is either steal it basically online or buy the DVD/Blu-ray, because otherwise you don't know if it's going to be there because streaming services can cut and drop different
Yeah,
things
there
that
you go.
only they have the rights to.
Yep.
So anyway, to bring this full circle, DVDs may be on the comeback, and if that does happen, that may spell the rise of much more interesting movies again. Anyway, so that was a big round the twist way of sort of bringing that together.
I love that. And Jez, I was going to say, and we don't encourage stealing. We're just saying that.
No, I was just
Yeah.
saying they're the only two options really that people have. So
But I was going to say another area that would be interesting to chat to Grangran about is phones, because she was back in the day, like the phone at the farm when I remember they moved from the party line, which everyone could listen into phone calls too.
That's true, and we had systems to get in. So our system was one short and two long. So you had all these, and then I've had an auntie who could tell who was picking up and listening. So if she was talking on the phone and somebody picked up, she'd say, "Well, whatever it was, get off the phone. I thought you were listening in." So everybody knew everybody else's business.
wait, Gregory, just before you keep going, what does one short and two long mean? So what does that actually
Well,
mean?
the old phones with the
Rotary dial.
rotary dial. So you do one short dial and then two big long dials.
Okay.
So and then other people had different, so everybody had a different dial.
Bit like our phone numbers now, but it was with the actual rotary dial.
Right.
Yes. So that went on for a long time before we got our own phones. Yeah. So, and of course they were on the wall.
And they had a cord.
And you had to go through the exchange to ring out to anybody. And then when you were because the party line was free if you rang around the party line, but if you went through the exchange, you were charged.
So what was the use of the party line? When would you use that?
Well, if you want to talk to your neighbours, so
Okay.
you want to have a good gossip about somebody, and they were listening. So I guess there were about 12 families on it. So that it was free, so you could ring and see how they were and
Bit,
talk about everything.
bit
Yeah,
like a WhatsApp
yeah,
group
yeah.
or something.
But if you wanted to talk to anybody outside the party line, you had to pay. So,
Okay.
so it was an economy thing because we
Mm,
didn't have much money in those
mm,
days.
And also things like calling to like to a city cost extra. And I remember international, like that was very
mm.
complicated if you had
That's
to
right.
call overseas. So mobile phones weren't invented when I was a kid. So if you went outside, you came home when you came home, usually on dusk, and they all trusted that we were all fine.
We hoped.
Well, what else was I going to say? I was going to ask, what would you say is one of the bigger things that's changed from when you were a kid? I mean, maybe I'll start with you, Danette, because we haven't heard too much from you. So,
Well,
what's probably one of the bigger things that's changed from when you were a kid?
well,
Grand's gone first.
Okay, cool.
well, we changed from horse and sulky because we didn't have a car
And
to
what's
a
a sulky?
horse and sulky.
It's like
Yes,
a buggy.
like a buggy behind a
Oh,
horse. So that's how we got around. And we rode to school on a horse. And
mhm.
then Dad bought a ute, so we upgraded to a ute. So when we went to town, Mum and Dad and Mary sat in the front, and the rest of us sat in the back.
No
And
seatbelts.
Got covered in dust.
and what was the day the Ute came in like, Gran? Or like what was it like when when the Ute first arrived? Was it exciting? Do you remember?
Yes, it was terribly exciting. We had a party. My father can remember the first car he ever saw. Him and his brother were up where the old shed is at
Hmm.
the farm, and this old T-model Ford came down the road. They thought it was a mad bull, and they both ran up a tree. So it was very, very exciting for us to have a car, not because you had to catch the horse first and put it in the sulky to go anywhere. But anyway, that so that's a bygone era,
Mhm.
and I don't think we ever had anything but a ute. For all the time we were growing up. Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
There you go.
yeah. Yes.
There you go.
And then when I went nursing, my sister had a little scooter. Anyway, when she went away to Sydney, I bought it off her. So I had a little scooter I rode around in.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So if I wanted to go home to the farm, because they wouldn't let us go home only about once every 3 months, I'd get on the little scooter and go home. One time I was home, I fell off it and cut my face open, and I was banned from riding it. So I used to keep it downtown with somebody I knew, so I still rode it.
We know the rule breaker in the family, don't we?
So a friend, Anne, had one too. So one time the three of us headed off to Griffith for the weekend on these
Oh,
scooters.
ouch.
Yeah, so I've been through interesting times. So there was no mobile phones,
No,
nothing. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah,
mm,
they weren't even when I was a kid.
no.
They
mm.
didn't happen till after I'd started work.
Do you remember seeing the first one? Do you remember
Well,
seeing your first?
yeah, they were like bricks. And I remember someone telling me a story about someone who was in a restaurant. Well, I wasn't there, but they told this story where this guy's on this brick of a thing talking like he was really important, and then it actually rang. So that was funny. And before that, it was like when I started work, computers were just starting, laptops were brand new, and they used to send a lot of stuff via faxes. And I remember one of the partners at one of the accounting firms I worked at thinking that the photocopier was the fax because clearly he'd never sent one off. So they were some of the things. And I think the big one being in accounting, Excel didn't exist when I started. So it was Lotus 1, 2, 3. So yeah, a couple of different things. And obviously things like planes, catching planes was way less than we do now. But yeah, it was fun. And going through all that change helps you become adaptable because you just know that change happens and then some things come back again.
Mm. And what do you think is like would you say what's a big change, Mum, also you've noticed from when you were a kid even? Is there some change that you
Yeah.
go like, wow, there's like a really big difference?
Well, I think even just, how we raise kids now to
Mm,
how it was back when I was a kid, and this is nothing against parenting today. It was just literally because there was no mobile phones, etc. We were outside all the time, and the
mm,
television wasn't that great. So we would just be outside on our bikes, roaming around the neighborhood and stuff like that. And that was just totally normal and just came back when it was coming on dusk for dinner. So
mm,
and the parents, they knew we were sort of okay, so off we all went together and had a great old time. Whereas nowadays, there's a lot more structure, and I don't think
mm,
either. I think balance is important on those. But
mm,
yeah,
mm,
and back in those days, there was a lot more at school. A lot of it was you have to sit still and be quiet. Whereas now, I think it's much more interactive and stuff, which I think is good for learning and stuff like that.
mm, mm,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's interesting. Even in my life, I feel like I've seen such a big change in so many different things. Even though I'm only 31, but one thing that really rings true to me, and I think this to me is a little bit of a microcosm of kind of a lot of different things, is for me specifically video games. I've noticed a bit of a change, which I think people
Yes.
from the outside probably would not have seen too much. But well, I grew up on like a Nintendo 64, which people will kind of know as like one of the first 3D consoles. Before that, they were
Yes.
kind of all 2D, and then it became kind of 3D. And even back then, there's just such a difference between games that were connected to the internet and games that were before that time. Before
Yep.
that time, the game was just released and that's it. Now, with the connection to the internet, they can update it all the time. And gaming now is much more about online play and also about buying little different things to make your character better. Whereas back in the day, it was all kind of creative. And one small but subtle change that's happened because of this is that back in the day, games used to be a little bit more kind of wild in the sense that they would just like I used to play a Tony Hawk skateboarding game, but they would have characters from Star Wars in there, or they might have Shrek in there or something.
Yep.
And the reason was they'd pay a one-time license fee and then that was it. But now because it's online and people can buy it again and again, they have to keep paying that, so they can't
Yes.
be as creative and mix up these things. So you
No.
kind of end up losing something in this
Yep.
new kind of system, which again, not unlike the DVD thing. I'm going back and playing older games on old consoles because again, there's a different feel and flavor to them, and you can't change them in the way that they can be changed now. So, yeah, it's another thing that I think, just from my own perspective, that's changed.
I was going to say, Jez, we were probably one of the first people in our suburb in Sydney to get a at-home computer. And back then, the games were Star Wars, where you pressed a button up and it shot at it, literally sad-looking stars that came through. And Pac-Man was one of those as well. And they were really very, very basic. And as you said, you couldn't necessarily, there was no internet or anything back then. So even watching them, but people now buy Pac-Man on,
Mm.
games consoles and stuff like that. So some of those games are still around now, which is pretty hilarious given they were super basic back then. And I was 13, so that's how long ago that was.
Yeah, Gran, what games did you have growing up? What sort of games did you play?
We used to play cricket and
Nice.
Monopoly
Right?
and and poker,
Mhm.
penny poker, and snakes and ladders. Yes. So and euchre,
You can.
euchre.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So there was no no videos or anything like that. And we spent like your mum said, we spent more time outside. Mum had
Mm.
Mum would pack us a picnic lunch and we'd get on the horses and go, and it's when the rabbit plague was going, and so we'd go and rabbit all day. So we had a corral and we'd hunt the rabbits in, slaughter the poor little things, and skin them and put and dry the skins out. So that was our pocket money. And rabbits looked good. Mum would stew them up, so that was our dinner as well.
And
So
what
we'd
what do you
go off and daybreak and come home when it was dark. So That
And
was all day.
what do you use a rabbit skin for?
They make the
Coats.
Akubra hats
Didn't
and
they used to make
Oh,
coats as
yeah,
well?
they make coats out of them, yeah.
okay.
So the Akubra hats are made out of rabbit skins now. I don't
There
know
you
whether
go.
they weren't in fashion then. Although Dad had a felt hat, so yeah, they could have been. Yeah. So and the fellow used to come around once a month and collect them all and give us only a pittance he ever gave us, but anyway, we thought we were rich.
Child labour.
We could buy a few broken biscuits on the way to school. Yeah, so yeah. So we used to the boys used to collect birds' eggs, and so I was the littlest, so they'd send me up the trees to collect the eggs. I never fell out. So we made our own fun, and we built what we called omnibuses. So we out of old ploughs and things with big wheels, and we'd go at the top of the hill, and they'd push us down, and we'd fly down the hill, hit a stone, and come off. Sometimes it'd all fall apart. It kept us, and we'd have paddy melon fights as well.
Oh yeah, that's good. A
And
patty
rotten,
melon's a bit like a watermelon, but
but
it's kind of
small,
dangerous for
yeah, yeah,
for people that don't know.
and rotten egg fights as well. That was
Pretty awful.
yes.
Well, I think we've done pretty well there, to be honest,
I do.
team, for a pretty good look back at history. I guess did you have any final thoughts, Gran, before we headed off on just how things have
I was
changed?
just thinking of another show. It was also a radio show, but then they put it on television. Was Dad and Dave, and the theme song was a track winding back to an old-fashioned shack along the
Mm.
road to Gundagai, and it was filmed at Snake Gully, and that's where Uncle Bill and Auntie Grace lived, near the Tucker
Mm.
Box, yeah, so that was a really funny show with broad Australian accents. Good old Aussie show.
All right, I'll have to check it out. I'll have to check it
Yes,
out.
you get it on DVD.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us again, Gran. It's been a pleasure to have you on the Magical Learning Podcast.
Thanks, Jez, I've enjoyed it, yeah.
Great. And Danette, did you have any final thoughts on how things have changed or anything that you wanted to leave us with?
No, but I love the idea of looking back to look forward and how some things come back around again, even though they look like they're going out of fashion, and fashion does that all the time. So
Mhm.
I suppose as we look forward as well, that some of the stuff that's come from the past will go into the future will just be slightly different. So we just need to be open and adaptable. So great topic, Jez, and great conversation today. Thanks for joining us, Gran.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. And yes, and like you said, things can come back round, not unlike this
The
beautiful
Grease.
Grease vinyl.
Can I say
Uh,
that is an original, so that's probably
uh-huh.
worth some money.
And here we go. We can even do the inlay reveal
Oh,
for
look at that.
everybody,
Oh,
so
my
we get the
goodness.
full experience.
Wow.
Love it.
And look, even to this day, it's the one that I want, you know. So there we
What
go.
I want.
All right. Well, I hope everybody. I hope you enjoyed this slightly different episode this week. We kind of pulled this one together, but we thought it'd be something a little different and a different way to kind of look at learning. Everybody, we are officially over 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, so thank you all so much. We really appreciate everybody, and to everybody that's been enjoying, listening, and sharing. Have a magical week.